Hello. It's been a while, hasn't it? Been way too long. Let me explain. I've not been well. I've had that annual chest infection I had last year as well. Ironically, about the same time. It's been a very tedious 6-7 weeks. So regular viewers of the channel, you might remember I had a great start to the year. Rode almost every day in January. I think it was 660 miles if I remember rightly. End of the month, I came on with a cold. The last video I actually put out was riding with Nige Ayers, and when I actually finally got around to editing that, I could see, yeah, I had a definite cold. But it left me with another chest infection, same as last year. So I could not stop coughing. At its worst, like, you just can't get a sentence out, and it becomes kind of debilitating. What I found makes it worse is being in the cold air and going hot to cold or cold to hot, whichever way round triggers it. So you spend the next X minutes coughing. So I tried valiantly to get rid of it, just nothing really shifted it. Every time I got to the end of the week, it was getting a bit better. And then weekend, I'd go riding my bike in early February and set it off again. So I've been like 5 weeks off the bike, 6 weeks I think. And I've almost got rid of it, it's almost gone. I think one of the other things that can creep up on you with things like coughs and anything, I think, in the upper body actually, is how stress can affect you. And I know over the years I've learned to recognise just in myself, when stress is taking hold, you end up with your neck kind of in your shoulders and you're just tense. And I know from speaking to a therapist many years ago, a lot of issues to your upper body, one way or another, are related to that stress and tension. And the tail end of last year, certainly the last 3 months of it, and the first month of the new year were particularly stressful. I've never massively spoken about it on the vlog before, but my kind of background, I've had 30 years of working for myself in different businesses that I've started. Got 5 kind of startup businesses effectively that I've had over that time. The last one being one that I know many of you know me from, which is the cycle cafe, Cafe Velo Verde, which I started in 2017 and sold 5 weeks before the first lockdown. Lucky, eh? But after 30 odd years of working for myself totally, or certainly in a senior board director position in a larger business, for the last 2.5 years I've had one of them job things. So I've actually been working within a local authority as a business advisor. After selling the coffee shop, kind of plan A was to have a few months off, have a few adventures, lots of cycling, and then start a mentoring and consultancy business. Obviously pandemic put paid to that. So when I saw the role at the time under the wing of a standalone investment company ultimately owned by a local authority, seemed to make a lot of sense. So for the first 18 months in that role, we were a standalone business, albeit ultimately owned by a local authority, but left free to do our own thing, which suited me. I created a few different things with businesses, worked with some fantastic businesses, helping them, supporting them, advising them, all paid for by the local authority. But then at the end of the pandemic, for what I guess is best described as political reasons and an element of practical reasons, the standalone business was incorporated into the local authority, and it all went downhill. I found myself in the tail end of the year just increasingly alternating between frustration and anger that I just couldn't get on and couldn't get things done that was needed to be done. So then basically things came to a bit of a head, and in the middle of January I resigned and handed my notice in. Had enough. So working my notice was the period when the chest infection really kicked in. Can't help feeling the two are linked. So I must admit, it's very nice to be out of that world. If any of you guys are involved in business, I know you'll understand how important it is to be entrepreneurial, to have freedom to think and to actually do stuff and get on with it. As a very good friend of mine put onto LinkedIn, it was like me being like a wild animal being freed to run off into his natural world. Which did make me chuckle at the time, I must admit. So also during that same time, a business friend of mine, Chris England, who I've known for the best part of 20 years actually, we did go for a long time without having seen each other, and then working in that role kind of brought us back into contact with each other. And he has a great business making video photography for business, and he's just recently launched a podcast, and it was fantastic in the same kind of time frame being a guest on his podcast. So I'm going to drop a little bit of video in here with a few extracts from that podcast you might find interesting, and in description below, and if I remember to do it, up there somewhere, I'll pop a link to the YouTube video.
Hello and welcome back to Making Video Your Business, the podcast that looks at business and everything video for your business. Today I'm joined by my friend and business aficionado, Paul Green. Paul, thank you so much for taking the time to join me.
You may have over-egged the omelette there.
I may have over-egged it a little bit, a tiny bit.
One of the things that I would like to say is that when you're passionate about a business and you're growing it, that's brilliant. But when you start to lose that passion, that is definitely a trigger point to serious look at selling. And that is essentially what we did.
Harrison Green wasn't the only business that you grew and sold, was it?
No. My midlife crisis business, I jokingly, seriously call it, was a cycle cafe called Cafe Velo Verde, which is just near Nottingham, on the way to Nottingham. And that was very visually and community driven. So we never spent a penny on marketing. Marketing spend was zero. And it took 12 weeks from opening to be number one on TripAdvisor for Nottinghamshire. I wanted to make it absolutely clear it's a coffee shop about cycling and community.
What would your advice be?
100% a really clear strategy. Who is your target market? What are they going to buy? What do they look like? What do they want? And where are they? Where do you find them? So many businesses lose sight of that, but everything tracks back from that. I went to an extreme with my cycle cafe. I didn't have children's menus. I didn't have high chairs. I only wanted cyclists, preferably in groups. So my target market was really, really clear. Everything was about that. The only bad review we ever had was from somebody who didn't know what we were. The sign was up there, Cycle Cafe, and she came in and her bad review on TripAdvisor was that it was clicky and full of cyclists. Yes, it was.
So that was me talking about the day job. Talking about business advice, business knowledge. Obviously, that style of video, content making, in the studio, surrounded by tens of thousands of pounds of equipment, is considerably different to riding down a canal towpath with a GoPro. So it was really interesting to actually be in the studio in a full-on video and podcast studio and seeing how all that side of it works. I've had an idea banding around in my head for a few months now about podcasts, and yeah, that did nothing to dampen that spot. Ah, joy. I've got a puncture. You know what that Roy would say, wouldn't you? Don't you? Should have gone tubeless. Best to get fixing then.
Oh, you have got a spare tube. I'm going to say
I've
the
got
sensible
one, yeah.
thing to do is take a spare tube.
Yeah, I've got one. Very well.
I'm a tubeless.
Yeah, I know. I've got a friend who always said I should have gone tubeless.
No, it's the way to go. I haven't had a puncture in about 5 years.
No. So, off again. Couldn't find a fresh puncture. It seemed to be possibly a patch lifted off an old puncture. We're back on the way again. It's quite a nice way to spend a Sunday morning, don't you think? So my plan is just an hour and a bit on the bike. Going to do about 15 miles. Ease myself back into it with a nice easy flat route. When you've been off the bike for like a month or so, I always notice my lung capacity is so much lower, and probably having had chest issues, that doubles that one. So homeward bound now. It's quite a nice day for it. Definitely getting warmer. Guess it won't be hopefully too long before we're back in shorts. Clocks will change. Be able to get out in the evenings in the light, it'd be nice. So I'm almost at the end of the canal, 2 and a bit miles to go to get home. So hopefully I'll see you again in a week or so's time. I'm not going to make a rash promise to see you in a few days, but hopefully it won't be 6 weeks. If you watch the podcast videos in full, don't forget to drop a comment on it, subscribe to that channel, subscribe to this channel. I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.